Welcome to American Catechism by Stab the Dragon Productions for episode number 34, maybe? Coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas, where it's 87 degrees on Monday, November 17th, 2025. And yesterday, the 16th, it was 89. So we are in 17th summer. This episode is in celebration of my home state of Oklahoma, because their statehood anniversary or birthday was yesterday, November 16th, 1907. They became the 46th state. Tonight we'll talk a little bit about Oklahoma, my time there, and then share a bourbon from Wanderfolk Distillery, Wanderfolk Spirits Distillery in Guthrie, Oklahoma. Same old Moses, 4-grain, straight bourbon. And at 100 proof, I felt okay putting this on ice. So I'll be drinking it on the rocks tonight, which I normally don't do. But this has got a great proof to it, 100 proof. And so, and it's a, warmish day. So there you go. So let's do a little bit about Oklahoma. The name comes to us from the Choctaw language, which means people red or land of the red men. Oklahoma is a landlocked state in the southwest region or south central plains. It's the 20th largest state in area, and it borders the states of Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas. The population is about 4.1 million, and its two largest cities are Oklahoma City and Tulsa. In the ancient times, the Arbuckle Mountains in south central Oklahoma are the oldest mountain range that lies between the Appalachians and the Rocky Mountains. There is evidence of indigenous peoples living in Oklahoma since the last ice age. The ancestors of the Wichita, Tejas, Escanikas, Tawakani, Tonkawa, and Caddo tribes live throughout. The Mississippian mound builders also lived in southeastern Oklahoma near Spiro, and it's famous for their ancient Indian mounds, which date back to probably about 500 AD. European contacts. The Spanish explorer Francisco Vasquez de Coronado explored part of the panhandle of Oklahoma on his way into Kansas in his 1541 expedition. At that time, there were Apache, Kiowa, Osage, Cheyenne, and Kansa Indians in the area. The French also lay claim to the region due to the 1682 La Salle expedition down the Mississippi River to the Gulf. And in 1803, President Thomas Jefferson purchased the Louisiana Territory from France, which included all of the region now known as Oklahoma. Indian Removal Act of 1830 was signed by Democrat President Andrew Jackson, and so the 5 civilized tribes of the Southeast were removed over about 20 years' time to the Oklahoma Territory. The 5 civilized tribes include the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Muskogee, Seminole, and all their black slaves. Yes, Native Americans owned slaves of each other and of blacks. Other Indian tribes conquered each other and enslaved, and then they also had blacks as slaves, and when they captured white people, they made slaves of white people. The Indians then, of course, sided with the Confederacy in the Civil War, and again, siding with the political party which forcibly had them removed. Go figure. Slavery was abolished in the Indian Territories in 1866. There was cattle trails going through Oklahoma as well. The Dawes Act of 1887 abolished the tribal governments and opened Oklahoma to white settlers. And so the 1889 land rush was on, but prior to that, you had the Chisholm Trail going through. It went through Duncan area, El Reno, Chickasha, Enid, along Highway 81, which I've driven. I've got family up in Enid, and last time we were there, we took Highway 81 south, and I saw a few monuments to the Chisholm Trail and others. And of course, many white settlers settled along that route before the land rush of 1889. The Sooners, there you go, they get their name. They get their name Sooners because there's some who got there sooner than the others, right? They cheated. They crossed the line early to stake out their land claims. So that was the land rush of 1889. Statehood. George Washington Steele was appointed the first territorial governor in 1890. And in June 16, 1906, Congress authorized the territory to write a constitution and form a state. So November 16, 1907, President Theodore Roosevelt signed the proclamation making Oklahoma the 46th state. Personal. Though I was not born in Oklahoma, I was born in Colorado, which borders Oklahoma. I was primarily raised and educated there. I lived in 5 different towns in Oklahoma from first grade through college. So in most ways, I consider Oklahoma to be home, although now I've lived in Texas for over 40 years. And again, I still have family in Oklahoma. I've got a great fondness for my home state and many great memories of my childhood in Oklahoma. One of my favorite children's novels of all time is from Oklahoma, written by an Okie. Where the Red Fern Grows, a 1961 novel by Woodrow Wilson Rawls, a native of Scraper, Oklahoma, in the Ozark Mountains of eastern Oklahoma, close to Tahlequah. It's a story of a boy raising his coon hunting dogs, Old Dan and Little Ann, in the Great Depression. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Garland, read us the story over several weeks, and I was captivated as a 4th grader. So I highly recommend Where the Red Fern Grows. I think there's a movie about it too. All right, so that's some thoughts on Oklahoma. So now let's talk about the whiskey. When I was in Oklahoma last, I stopped at a liquor store and asked, "Do you have anything from Oklahoma?" So this showed up, coming out of Wander Folk Spirits in Guthrie, Same Old Moses Bourbon. This is a 4-grain, double-barreled, straight bourbon, weighing in at 100 proof, costing about $45. Tasting notes: caramel, dark fruits with some citrus, leather, spices, and tobacco. My favorite combination. But I gave this whiskey a score of 81. Letter grade for drinkability, a solid B. And my recommendation: I fully support the craft whiskey industry. So even though this is not distilled in Oklahoma, this is a blend of Kentucky and Texas whiskeys in an Oklahoma bottle. They aged it in Oklahoma, or finished aging. They finished it in Oklahoma, and then they bottled it there. So Wander Folk Spirits is relatively new, and so they haven't released their own stuff yet. And so I got this a year ago, I guess, or earlier this year maybe. Yeah, I think maybe March of this year. And I'm glad I got it. It's just not real Oklahoma juice yet, but nonetheless, the story behind the brand and the label really is pretty cool. So if you are an Okie and you like whiskey, I would urge you to give Same Old Moses Bourbon a try, because it is pretty good. Some details. History. Again, this is in Guthrie, Oklahoma, kind of northwest, I think, of Oklahoma City, on Highway 81. Wander Folk Spirits took over Prairie Wolf Spirits, which was Oklahoma's first distillery, starting in 2013 by David and Hunter Merritt. Then a new group came in with Wander Folk brothers Drew and Eric Tekel. Eric is a sommelier. And then their chef, Jonathan Stranger, along with Stephen Sands. They entered the picture in 2018. The bourbon is named after a man named Moses Weinberger, who founded the territory's first saloon in Guthrie after the land rush of 1889. And famously, this is a great story, famously, Weinberger invited Carrie Nation, the leader of the temperance movement at the time, to give a talk about temperance at his saloon. But he asked her, "Don't wreck my saloon," because she was famous for carrying an axe and destroying saloons, breaking up the bar and breaking up barrels. Well, she brought her axe and she did what she was famous for. She took an axe to his bar. Well, this whiskey has won a gold medal at the 2023 San Francisco World Spirits. So, 5 out of 5 for history. Cool story that goes with this. Just love that. Bottle, label, and marketing. The bottle is kind of an odd shape. Don't you agree? And I guess it represents a pot still. I couldn't find it actually defined, but when you look at pictures of pot stills, this is real close. Okay? It could be a bell, looks like a bell, but no. I think for whiskey, this has got to be a pot still. The website and the bottle both have an axe on it. See the axe there? Little fiddly bits there on the bottle. That's pretty cool. Well, the axe, that's part of the story of Carrie Nation. Look her up. And the woman head of the temperance movement who attacked the bar at Moses Saloon. The label says, let me see if I can read this label. This is great. Again, well done for the people at Wander Folk Spirits. Where's the say this on it? Okay, it says, all nations welcome except Carrie. Okay, so you can maybe read that. There, all nations, right up there. And then at the bottom, except Carrie. So, I just think that's an outstanding label there. Now, you do have a wood topper with a rubber cork. And, traditionalists want a real cork. Rubber corks work better. They just do. They don't fall apart. They don't get old, crumble in your whiskey. So, I could go either way. And again, this label, it's a nice looking, it's got copper trim, reddish brown colors, big white bold letters, and a old-timey script. The lead distiller's signature looks like it says Jeffrey Cole. And so for including this obscure piece of history into the label and website, well done. Very well done. 5 out of 5 for bottle, label, and marketing. Appearance of this whiskey. Well, you can see in the bottle, it's reasonably dark. It's a, kind of, in the bottle, it always looks darker than in the glass. It's got a little bit of a red tinge there. In the glass, it's much lighter. Kind of a honey colored. So, for appearance, 3 out of 5 points. Composition. I did see an interview with the distiller, and this bourbon is currently a blend of Kentucky and Texas bourbons, barreled in Oklahoma and finished aging in Oklahoma. Their own bourbon is there, it's aging in the facility, and they're not going to release it till it's ready. Now, we don't know which whiskeys are in here or what the proportions are, but they do say it's a 4-grain spirit. So you've got corn, wheat, rye, and malted barley. Don't have the proportions, though. It is 100 proof, and the label says that it is a 4-year-old that is then rebarreled in New American oak, but they don't say for how long or what char level. So 12 out of 15 for where am I? Yeah, 12 out of 15 for composition. Nose. Didn't have much of a nose. I tested this neat the other day, and of course, when I put it on ice, I can't smell anything. I did get a little bit of corn sweetness, but not much else. So it's kind of your basic standard score for my show, 7 out of 10. Taste. I got caramel and spices, maybe some cloves, a little bit of wood, leather and tobacco, a bit of citrus. This is pretty decent. 21 out of 25 for taste. Now, putting it on the rocks, to me, always mutes the taste. But there you go. 21 out of 25. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. It had a medium mouthfeel with a very mild burn for 100 proof. It was actually quite a bit smoother than you would think for its proof. The finish was medium with a little bit of a tannic drying experience there, but still had some nice flavors. So 12 out of 15 for mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Neat or mixer. This is fine neat. It was strong enough to withstand the ice a little bit and would likely make a decent cocktail. Again, I rarely put whiskey on the rocks, but I'm still getting a little bit of nice flavors there, but you know, it's diluting. So 5 out of 5 for neat or mixer. I'm sure it would be good in a cocktail. Price, value, and availability. Total Wine in some parts of the country does carry this, but not the one in Fort Worth that I go to. So I got this in Guthrie at a small store, and Guthrie's just about 4.5 hours away from here. Total Wine lists it for $43.99. I think I paid close to $50 for it at the small store. So I'm gonna, say it's a $45 bottle. So, which is a decent price for a craft bourbon, by the way. I mean, $45 for 100 proof craft bourbon, that's actually very, very good price. So 7 out of 10 for price, value, and availability, because I can't get it here. I have to drive to Oklahoma, apparently. Bonus points. I love the history, the bottle, the label. The whiskey itself is fairly good. A little, maybe mediocre, but it's decent. 4 out of 5 bonus points, giving me a total score of an 81. A letter grade for drinkability, a B. My analysis and recommendation, when distilleries start up, there's a significant outlay of capital, but there's not going to be much income for a while. And so one standard way that new distilleries operate is, they make vodka and gin, which don't require aging, and Wanderfolk Spirits has that, and Prairie Wolf Spirits has their line there too. So in between, when they start up and when they get their own stuff online, they have to source. If they, not everybody does that, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do that. So when they finish aging their real stuff, I'd be interested in trying this again for sure. But for right now, it's a little bit of Kentucky and a little bit of Texas in here. And in one of the interviews that I read, I think, the distiller here knew somebody in Texas and worked with, David Pickerel was involved in this process as well. And so if you know the bourbon world, David Pickerel was a longtime distiller at Maker's Mark, and then he helped several craft distilleries get started. And the distiller here knew somebody who was trained by David Pickerel. Okay. And then that somebody was in Texas, I guess. And so that's how Texas distillery that is unnamed got involved in this project. So at any rate, complex history, but I'm looking forward to the real stuff when it comes out. And I'm close enough to Oklahoma and go back for family stuff that I'll get another bottle of this. All right, well, that's all for American Catechism tonight. celebrating my home state of Oklahoma. This is American Catechism with Stab the Dragon out here.